I come here today to remember a special but tragic day in our Christian calendar. On this day we look at the cross, not just as a symbol of our faith, but also as an instrument of torture and death. Today is a solemn, sobering day, Lord, a very sombre day in the calendar of the events of your life. On this day we remember that you reap the rewards of being controversial in your attitude to religious bigotry. On this day we see the betrayal of friendship and its consequences. On this day we remember that your enemies appear to have got the upper hand. On this day we remember that all the prophecies about your end were justified. On this day we see the casual cruelty of Roman authority and execution. On this day we see how unreliable your followers proved to be in a real crisis. On this day we appeared to see the death of God. Be with us, Lord, as we reflect on this day and the effect that it has on our lives. Help us to remember that religious bigotry, cruelty and unreliability are still a part of our everyday lives, and that enemies of the faith still surround us. Show us how we can learn from your example of suffering, that you were prepared to go to any lengths to prove just how much God cares about his people. Then help us to translate all that we learn into loving actions and reactions to the people around us who need that sacrificial love. Otherwise, your cross would have been in vain.
Station 1. Jesus is condemned to death. A reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. When I came to you, brothers and sisters, I did not come proclaiming the mystery of God to you in lofty words or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I came to you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. My speech and my proclamation were not with plausible words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might rest not on human wisdom, but on the power of God. Lord, it's too late for you to be quiet. You've spoken too much. You fought too much. You were not sensible, you know. You exaggerated. It was bound to happen. You called the better people a breed of vipers. You told them that their hearts were black sepulchres with fine exteriors. You chose the decaying lepers. You spoke fearlessly with unacceptable strangers. You ate with notorious sinners, and you said that streetwalkers would be the first in paradise. You got on well with the poor, the bums, the crippled. You belittled the religious regulations. Your interpretation of the law reduced it to one little commandment: to love. Now they are avenging themselves. They've taken steps against you. They have approached the authorities, and action will follow. Lord, I know that if I try to live a little like you, I shall be condemned. I am afraid. They are already singling me out. Some smile at me, others laugh. Some are shocked, and several of my friends are about to drop me. I am afraid to stop. I am afraid to listen to men's wisdom. It whispers, you must go forward little by little, Everything can't be taken literally. It's better to come to terms with the adversary. And yet, Lord, I know that you are right. Help me to fight. Help me to speak. Help me to live your gospel to the end, to the folly of the cross.
Stations of the Cross. Number 2. Jesus bears his cross. Reading from the Gospel of St. Luke, the 9th chapter, verses 23 and 24. Then he said to them all, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it." Lord, here is your cross, as if it were your cross. You had no cross and you came to get ours, and all through your life and along the way to Calvary, you took upon you one by one the sins of the world. You have to go forward and bend and suffer. The cross must be carried. Lord, you walk on silently. Is it true then that there is a time for speaking and a time for silence? Is it true that there's a time for struggling and another for the silent bearing of our sins and the sins of the world? Lord, I'd rather fight the cross. To bear it is hard. The more I progress and the more I see the evil in the world, the heavier is the cross on my shoulders. Lord, help me to understand that the most generous deed is nothing unless it's also silently redemptive. And since you want for me this long way of the cross, at the dawning of each day, help me to set forth.
Station 3. Jesus falls for the first time. From Mark's Gospel. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. "You don't know what you're asking," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink, and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with." He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Simon," he said to Peter, "are you asleep? Couldn't you keep watch for 1 hour?" He fell. For a moment he staggered, then fell prostrate, God in the dust. "And so, Lord, I follow you," setting out with confidence, and now I have fallen. I thought I had given myself completely to you, but I caught sight of a flower on a footpath. I left you. I left the cumbersome cross, and here I am, off the road, possessed of a few faded petals and my solitude. And the others, Lord, pass along the road, broken, exhausted. And crosses are in the making, and backs are bending. I am no longer there to fight evil and to help men to drag their loads. I am off the road. Lord, help me not only to follow after you, but to keep steadily on. Keep me from sudden weaknesses that leave me stupefied and empty, far from the place where you are shaping the world.
The Stations of the Cross. 4. Jesus meets his mother. Luke chapter 2, verses 30 to 35. The child's father and mother marvelled at what was said about him. Then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary his mother, "This child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your own soul too." Lord, I pity your poor mother. She follows you. She follows mankind on its way of the cross. She walks in the crowd, unknown, but she doesn't take her eyes off you. Every gesture of yours, every sigh, every blow dealt you, every wound pierces her heart. She knows your sufferings. She suffers your sufferings. And without coming near you, without touching you, without speaking to you, Lord, with you she saves the world. Often, mingled with the crowd, I accompany men on their way of the cross, and I am crushed by evil. I feel incapable of saving the world. It's too heavy and rotten, and every day at the turn of the road I become acquainted with new injustices and new impurities. Lord, show me your mother Mary, the useless one, the ineffectual one in the sight of men, but the co-redemptrix in the sight of God. Help me to walk among men, eager to know their miseries and their sins. May I never avert my eyes. May I never close my heart, that in welcoming the sufferings of the world with Mary your mother, I may suffer and redeem.
Station 5. Simon of Cyrene helps carry Jesus' cross. Mark 15, verses 20 to 21. And led him away to be crucified. As for his cross, they forced a passer-by who was coming in from the country to carry it, one Simon of Cyrene. Bear the burden of one another's failings, then you will be fulfilling the law of Christ. He passed by on the road. They pressed him into service. The first to come along, a stranger. Lord, you accepted his help. You did not want the help of a friend, the solace of a gesture of love, the generous impulse of one who cared. You chose the enforced help of an indifferent and timid fellow. Lord all-powerful, you sought the help of a powerless man. By your own choosing, you are in need of us. Lord, I need others. The way of man is too hard to be trodden alone. But I avoid the hands outstretched to help me. I want to act alone. I want to fight alone. I want to succeed alone. And yet beside me walk a friend, a spouse, a brother, a neighbour, a fellow worker. You have placed them near me, Lord, and too often I ignore them. And yet it is together that we shall save the world. Lord, even if they are requisitioned, grant that I may see, that I may accept all the Simons on my road.
The Stations of the Cross. 6. A woman wipes the face of Jesus. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 10 and 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 12. We carry about continually in our bodies the dying state of Jesus, so that the living power of Jesus may be manifested in our bodies too. At present we are looking at a confused reflection in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. For a long time, Lord, her eyes were on you. She suffered from your suffering. Unable to bear it any longer, she pushed the soldiers aside and with a cloth of fine linen wiped your face. Were your bleeding features imprinted on her cloth? Maybe. In her heart, surely. Lord, I needed to contemplate you at great length, disinterestedly, as a little brother admires and loves his big brother. For I want to resemble you, and for that I must first look at you. If you want, I shall become a little like you, since friends who love each other become one. But Lord, too often I carelessly pass in front of you, or am bored when I stop and look at you. And to others I must be a sad caricature of you. Forgive my body, eager for pleasures. It does not bring your presence to others. Forgive my clouded eyes. In them others cannot see your light. Forgive my encumbered heart. In it others do not see your love. Nevertheless, Lord, come to me. My door is open.
Station 7. Jesus falls for the second time. A reading from Matthew and Luke. They all grew drowsy and fell asleep. Only look well to yourselves. Do not let your hearts grow dull. Keep watch, then, praying at all times, so that you may be found worthy to come safe through all that lies before you and stand erect to meet the presence of the Son of Man. Lord, you are spent. Again you've fallen to the ground. This time you fall not only from the weight of the cross, but from exhaustion. Recurrent suffering numbs the will. My sins, Lord, are dulling my conscience. I get used to evil very quickly. A little self-indulgence here, a small unfaithfulness there, an unwise action further on, and my vision becomes obscured. I no longer see stumbling blocks. I no longer see other people on my road. My ears gradually close. I no longer hear the complaints of men. I find myself on the ground, on the plain, far from the road you laid out for me. Lord, I beseech you, keep me young in my efforts. Spare me the bondage of habit, which lulls to sleep and kills.
Station 8. Jesus rebukes the daughters of Jerusalem. Luke chapter 6, verses 41 to 42. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, with never a thought for the great plank in your own? How can you say to your brother, "My dear brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you're blind to the plank in your own? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's. They weep, they sob. It's easy to understand if you see what men have done to him. And they are helpless, They cannot interfere, so they weep. They weep in pity. Lord, you've seen them, you've heard them, but you said, weep first for your sins. To pity your sufferings and the sufferings of the world I manage very well, Lord. But to weep for my own sins, that's another matter. I'd much sooner bemoan those of others. It's easier. I'm well up on that. The whole world passes every day before my tribunal. I've found plenty of guilt in politics, economics, slums, alcohol, movies, industry. I see it in many people, in laissez-faire Christians, in priests who don't understand a thing, and in many others, Lord, many others. All in just about the whole world, except for me. Lord, teach me that I am a sinner.
Station 9. Jesus falls for the third time. A reading from Matthew and then from John. Truly I tell you, Jesus answered, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. Again, you do not move for all the soldiers beating. Lord, are you dead? No, but utterly spent, a mixture of terrible anxiety. But you begin again, just as you are, Lord, and walk on, one step, then another. Lord, you have fallen a third time, but this time close to Calvary. Again, I fall every time. I'll never get there. But I've said that before, Lord, and please forgive me, for you were right with me. You were just testing my trust. If I became discouraged, I am lost. If I keep up the fight, I am saved. For you fell a third time, but you had nearly reached Calvary.
Station 10. Jesus is stripped of his garments. John chapter 12 verses 23 to 24. The time has come now for the Son of Man to achieve his glory. Believe me when I tell you this, a grain of wheat must fall into the ground and die, or else it remains nothing more than a grain of wheat. But if it dies, then it yields rich fruit. You'd nothing left but your own cloak. You were fond of it. Your mother had woven it for you. But this too had to go. One thing only is needful. Lord, it's your cross. Nothing comes now between you and the cross. You're finally going to be united forever, and together you will save the world. So, Lord, I must give up all these trappings which hinder me and hide me from your sight. This possessing which stifles the being in me and separates me from others. Thus, Lord, little by little, All in my life must die, which is not an expression of your will. I don't like it, Lord. It's always a question of dying. How demanding you are. I give, and you want more. I'd like to keep a few trifles I cling to and can't bring myself to offer you. But if you want all, Lord, take all. Strip me, yourself, of my last garment, for I well know that we must die to deserve life, as the seed must die to yield the golden grain.
Station 11. Jesus is nailed to the cross. Galatians 2, verse 19 to 20. With Christ I hang upon the cross, and yet I am alive, or rather, not I, it is Christ that lives in me. True, I am living here and now, this mortal life, but my real life is the faith I have in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Lord, you stretch at full length on the cross. There, without a doubt, it is made for you. You cover it entirely, and to adhere to it more surely, you allow men to nail you carefully to it. Lord, it was work well done, conscientiously done. Now you fit your cross exactly, as the mechanic's carefully filed parts fit the engineer's blueprint. There had to be this precision. Thus, Lord, I must gather my body, my heart, my spirit, and stretch myself at full length on the cross of the present moment. I haven't the right to choose the wood of my passion. The cross is ready, to my measure. You present it to me each day, each minute, and I must lie on it, It isn't easy. The present moment is so limited that there is no room to turn around. And yet, Lord, I can meet you nowhere else. It's there that you await me. It's there that together we shall save our brothers.
Station 12. Jesus dies on the cross. Reading from Philemon and 1 John. He dispossessed himself and took the nature of a slave, fashioned in the likeness of men and presenting himself to us in human form. And then he lowered his own dignity, accepted an obedience which brought him to death on a cross. And we too must be ready to lay down our lives for the sake of our brethren. A few hours more, a few minutes more, a few instants more. For 33 years it's been going on. For 33 years you've lived fully, minute after minute. You can no longer escape now. You are there at the end of your life, at the end of your road. You are at the last extremity, at the edge of a precipice. You must take the last step of love, the last step of life that ends in death. You hesitate. 3 hours are long, 3 hours of agony, longer than 3 years of life, longer than 30 years of life. You must decide, Lord, All is ready around you. You are there, motionless on your cross. You've renounced all activity other than embracing these cross planks for which you were made. And yet there is still life in your nailed body. Let mortal flesh die and make way for eternity. Now life slips from each limb, one by one, finding refuge in his still beating heart. Immeasurable heart, overflowing heart, heart heavy as the world of sins and miseries that it bears. Lord, one more effort. Mankind is there, waiting unknowingly for the cry of its Saviour. Your brothers are there, they need you. Your Father bends over you, already holding out his arms. Lord, save us. Save us. He has taken his heavy heart and, slowly, laboriously, alone between heaven and earth, in the awesome night, with passionate love, he's gathered his life. He's gathered the sin of the world, and in a cry he has given all. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Christ has just died for us. Lord, help me to die for you. Help me to die for them.
Station 13. Jesus is given to his mother. A reading from Luke chapter 2. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Your work is done. You can leave your cross. You can come down to rest. You surely earned it. Slowly you slip down like a man weary of labour and drowsy with sleep. Your mother takes you in her arms. You rest in peace. Over your face, calm and serene, there passes a ray of joy. All is accomplished. You have made your mother suffer, but she is proud of you. Sleep now, my little one. Your mother is watching you. Thus each night my day ended. I fall asleep. What a state I am in sometimes, Lord. But alas, it is not always in serving the Father that I have become soiled and tired. Mary, will you be willing even so to watch over me every night? My body is weighed down with its failures, but my heart asks forgiveness. Don't forget, you are the refuge of sinners. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for me, a poor sinner. Grant that through the merits of your Son, I may never fall asleep without receiving the forgiveness of our Father, that each night, resting in peace in your arms, I may learn how to die.
Station 14. Jesus is laid in the tomb. Reading from Colossians. In this mortal frame of mine, I help to pay off the debt which the afflictions of Christ still leave to be paid for the sake of his body, the church. The sufferings of Christ, it is true, overflow into our lives, but there is overflowing comfort too, which Christ brings to us. Let's forget it now and all go home. He's buried and the stone is in place. His family's in tears, his friends are lost. The time it is really over, this time really over. Lord, it's not over. You are in agony till the end of time, I know. Men tread in relays the way of the cross. The resurrection will only be completed when they've reached the end of the way. I'm on the road. I have a small share of your suffering, and the others have theirs. Together we help you to carry the burden that you've assumed and made divine. There lies my hope, Lord, and my invincible trust. There is not a fraction of my little suffering that you've not already lived and transformed into infinite redemption. When the road's hard and monotonous, when it leads to the grave, I know that beyond the grave you're waiting for me in your glory. Lord, help me faithfully to travel along my road at my proper place in the vastness of humanity. Help me above all to recognize you and to help you in all my pilgrim brothers. For it would be a lie to weep before your lifeless image if I didn't follow you, living on the road that men travel.